Hey guys, today we're going to be looking at a comic book, the existence of which completely confuses me. I give you The Joker #1. Back in the late 90s, DC Comics wanted to create a new universe where the technological influence of the superhero community had more of an impact on the world at large, as opposed to the main DC universe, where technologies like cybernetics exist, but for some reason are limited to superheroes like Cyborg and Arsenal. And frankly, that's one aspect of the DC universe that just completely confounds me. If you have that kind of amazing technology that has the potential of doing so much good, why don't you actually try replicating some of that technology in the world around you? Anyway, DC created the imprint Tangent Comics in order to showcase this new universe, and I have no idea why. Not only were all the parallel DC universes combined into one DC universe in 1985 just to avoid this kind of convoluted confusion, but why wouldn't they just publish these comics under the Elseworlds imprint? Comics are confusing enough as it is without making people think there's another company publishing a character called the Joker. Our story begins in New Atlantis. Instant fail on the first narration box. I mean, wow. Really? Okay, I know the idea is to make up a new story that stands alone outside of the continuity of the main DC universe, but what's the point of putting the Joker in a city that isn't Gotham if the only difference between this universe and the main DC universe is that one is more technologically advanced than the other? And they're calling this city New Atlantis? I don't think it's a good idea to sell people on a new Joker comic and then immediately make them think of Aquaman. The comic explains that this New Atlantis was built on the ruins of Atlanta, Georgia, so why didn't they just rebuild Atlanta? And that all of Florida was destroyed in the Cuban Missile Crisis. Because in a world where superheroes have a far more obvious impact on the world around them, of course it would be impossible for them to stop a nuclear strike. We then see two cops taking a break, one of whom is struggling to get a soda machine to work, and they have a little banter which includes futuristic buzzwords, since, we need to be reminded that we're in a futuristic society here. Suddenly, a cartoon hand taps one of them on the shoulder. "Excusez-moi, senor." 2 languages in 1 sentence? Apparently I'm reading a Roadside Romeo comic. And with that, we're introduced to the Joker, as she throws the cartoon hand at the cop and looks like she's trying to kick him, but both actions miss him completely despite being made from point-blank range. This Joker sucks. The hand punches the soda machine, causing a soda to fall out and roll into the cop's lap. "So you guys use less force on a soda machine than on protesting students? Bet the 4 hospitalized kids think that's hilarious." Are you suggesting that these cops should be using more excessive force than they've already been doing? You just demonstrated how using force was the only way to get that soda. Joker proceeds to bounce around them like she was Daffy Duck, not actually hurting them in any way, just being kind of annoying. Whoa, high-res triple speed. If only we had some kind of high-tech countermeasure against super speed like the superheroes use on a regular basis. Yeah, 3 pages in, and the comic completely abandons its own universe's premise. If super tech is more prevalent than what we usually see in comics, why are the cops having such a hard time dealing with this girl? They don't even try to reach for their guns or anything. Why are they just letting her get away? They never covered things like this at the Academy. Why the hell not? They tried to chase her down, but she cripples their car thanks to a handful of caltrops that look like jacks. I said the Force should put Brand Labs as puncture proofs on these things. Didn't I say that? When the characters start coming up with better ideas than the writer, there is something seriously wrong with your comic. They come across what is obviously not the Joker's hideout, but instead of finding her, they find a miniature mob boss named Dollman, all wrapped up for the police to take in, along with his 2 goons, Titano and Grodd. Why, of course it makes sense that the state of technology in this universe would dictate that 2 giant gorillas are actually a couple of random goons instead. And yes, the Joker is helping the police capture and apprehend other criminals. We've just barely started here, and this comic is already whizzing down its leg. We then see the Joker come back to her real hideout, where she uses a light mouse to connect to the internet. Because, future. She hacks into the personnel files of New Atlantis PD, and laughs hysterically after finding out something about Officer Keel, the cop she was messing with before. Yeah, spoiler alert, that bit of information that she found isn't really all that funny. We then cut to NAPD, where Officer Keel gives a video camera that he recovered from the crime scene to its owner, Lori Lamaris, who isn't a mermaid in this comic, but a reporter for the world's finest e-magazine. Don't you just love it when a comic goes out of its way to take everything fanciful and make it as pointlessly normal as possible? The cops ask her if she knows anything about the Joker, but all that she can tell them is a handful of rumors that she's heard.
Some say she's the manifestation of all those who died during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The ghost of our past, haunting us, mocking us.
Keel reacts the same way that any perfectly sane cop would react to such a statement, and leaves Laurie high and dry.
No sense of humor.
Yeah, why bother giving the cops actual leads when you could just tell them jokes instead? While on their way to somewhere, the Joker bumps into the cops, takes Keel's gun, and replaces it with a flag gun, and just runs away after accomplishing nothing. I don't need this. I don't deserve this. Why me? I've been saying the same thing since this comic began. Keel is then instructed to head over to New Atlantis University, since the Joker has appeared there more than anywhere else in town, and it's likely that she'll show up there again. And why wouldn't campus security already be on the lookout for her? He goes to the university, which is 30 stories above sea level for some reason, and asks some students if they see the Joker anywhere. But because the Joker is anti-establishment and sticking it to the man, that's all the motivation these bright, intelligent college students need to not tell them if they know anything. Then Janine from the Ghostbusters suddenly shows up, and she asks what's going on.
Joker, only the biggest, baddest thing to hit this town since me. Something you'd know if you didn't live in the tech labs, girl. Good old Mary Marvel, girl of 1,000 gimmicks. That's not very funny, Heather. Shh! You want to ruin my rep, girl? The name's Harley now. Harley Quinn.
Ha! Mary always gets the last laugh on Harley.
Every time!
1. Stop randomly throwing out names if you're not going to even try to make them like the characters they're supposed to be. 2. What kind of reputation does Harley Quinn have if Mary Marvel always gets the last laugh? 3. We're never going to see these characters again in this comic, so what was even the point of this exchange? We then see some kind of rally in progress, since it's college, and there of course has to be some kind of rally, where its leader, Brother Power, is spreading the Joker's message of how the establishment is a joke. Joker herself then shows up to ask what all the fuss is about.
We'll never follow leaders blindly again!
We aren't sheep!
You've showed us the way, Joker!
You're our leader now!
Tell us what to do and we'll do it!
You're joking, right?
Well, it took us 20 pages to get there, but at least the comic finally gave our main character something that I can actually identify with. Keel finally makes his way onto the scene, and before Brother Power can rabble-rouse the crowd into taking him down, Joker throws some chittering teeth at him and she leaps off the building after insisting that everyone else follows behind her. None of the students understand what just happened, but Keel thinks it's hilarious.
I don't get it.
It's okay, sweetie. Nobody gets it. Keel follows Joker as she leads him underground, and then she knocks him out while briefly turning the comic into Sin City. He then wakes up in some kind of war room, where the Joker orders him to start launching nuclear missiles at Cuba. Did I mention that this comic was published in 1997? If this is a universe where the Cuban Missile Crisis ended more tragically than the way it really happened, okay, fine, but why make it the motivation behind someone who doesn't look like she's old enough to have been even born when the crisis was happening? Why is she so pissed off by this? It's implied that Keel here has some kind of military past, and it was he who failed to push the button first, and so the destruction of Florida is on his hands, even though he also looks too young to be involved with it. Why is the Joker going after this guy for not having the nerve to kill millions of innocent people in nuclear Armageddon? If the real Joker knew that someone's value for life ended up killing millions, he'd be laughing his ass off. Oh, by the way, despite the atrocities that happened during the crisis, the rest of the country looks like it's in pretty good shape. The Cold War obviously ended with capitalism winning the day, and there is no way that Cuba is just going to walk away from this without answering for their crimes, so what's the Joker even fighting against in the first place? It's been 35 years since the crisis happened! The rest of the world has recovered and moved on, and so should you! Yes, it is important that we remember the tragedies of the past and try to learn from our mistakes, but the only way that we're going to make any kind of progress is if we at least try to let go of our anger and make sure that it doesn't run our lives. Joker continues to rub Keel's face in it, but then it's revealed that it was only a virtual reality simulation, courtesy of Madame Xanadu. Because, you know, practicing the dark arts and running a VR cafe are exactly the same thing, aren't they? Keel asks her where the Joker is, but she says that respecting the anonymity of her customers is paramount in her line of business. And instead of trying to force more information out of her like the dirty cop that Joker thinks he is, Keel just leaves without pushing the issue. He then goes to the Cuban Missile Crisis Survivors Memorial. How do you have a memorial for survivors, but not for millions of dead Floridians? Anyway, he goes to the memorial, which New Atlantis was apparently built on top of and hid it away from the world, making it completely useless as a memorial, and he bumps into the Joker. He deduces that she is the daughter of one of the survivors from the crisis, and he reveals that it was his father who launched the first missile. Let's see if I got this straight. Joker's parents survived the nuclear strike but eventually died slow, painful deaths. She's pissed off at how the world is trying to forget that this tragedy even happened, and she figures that the best way to deal with that anger is to screw around with a cop whose only connection to any of this is that his dad was the one who pushed the button. If you were really the Joker, you'd be trying to hijack some missiles for yourself and firing them at the homes of Keel's friends and family. If there's a memorial that the city is trying to sweep under the rug, and if you feel it must be seen and remembered, why don't you just plant some bombs around the buildings directly above it and blow them up? Hell, why not make your own memorial with the bodies of those who decided to build over the original? And no, I don't care if making these suggestions makes me sound like a sick freak. When you're writing a Joker story, you need to be a little crazier than usual. But then this girl shows up and beats down the Joker for her involvement in the capture of her boss, Dollman. Who is this girl? Big Barda. Oh yeah, they took a dark side warrior turned superheroine and reduced her into nothing but a piece of ass for a midget mob boss. And somehow she's even more of a gorilla than the actual gorillas. Joker and Keel get above ground again, but Crazy Gorilla Lady is still on their heels.
Know what the secret to comedy is? Timing!
Yeah, exactly how did you set up that soda machine to do that when you had absolutely no time to do it? With Crazy Gorilla Lady defeated, the Joker tosses another soda at Keel and leaves him with more questions than answers. I know the feeling. And the comic comes to a close with Keel monologuing about who the Joker really is and how she might operate, with this panel that indicates that not only is she the Joker, but she's also Laurie Lamaris, Mary Marvel, and Madame Xanadu. Yeah, because it's not like the stress of leading a double life is one of the most common tropes in superhero comics. It's so easy that the Joker here can lead a quadruple life, and no one is any the wiser. And so that was... Gah! Even if we ignore how this is nothing like the Joker, this comic is completely stupid. Our main character's motivations make no sense, her plan of action makes even less sense, but hey, maybe that's to be expected since nothing in this world makes any sense either. How did the Cuban Missile Crisis escalate like it did when we have a heavier influence from the superhero community than what we usually see in comics? Why wouldn't they have stopped it? Where are the superheroes anyway? Why would they build a memorial to the survivors of a nuclear attack and not the millions of victims? Why would they just build over the memorial instead of try to maintain it like every other memorial on the planet? Why don't the police have the technological means of dealing with supercriminals in a world that's supposed to be heavily influenced by the technology of superheroes? Oh, and did I mention that the random name-dropping in this comic was stupid? Because the random name-dropping in this comic was really, really stupid! And while I do stand by my earlier statement of how we should always remember the tragedies of the past, I think we can afford to forget this piece of crap.
I never knew that our romance had ended until you poisoned my food. And I thought it was a lark when you kicked me in the park. But now I think it was rude. I never knew that you and I were finished until that bottle hit my head. Though I tried to be aloof when you pushed me off the roof, I feel our romance is dead. It wouldn't have been so bad if you had told me that someone had taken my place. But no, you didn't even scold me. You just tried wait to disfigure my face. You'll never know how this heart of mine is breaking. It looks so hopeless, but then life used to be so placid. Won't you please put down that acid and say that we're sweethearts again?
Subscribe, like, follow, comment, share, watch more, more.